Bloating sucks. It's uncomfortable, it makes you feel heavy, inflamed, self-conscious, and probably also frustrated, especially if you're already eating healthy and thinking that you're doing everything right. So in this video, we're gonna talk about why bloating even happens, what's normal and what isn't, and what you can do about it to not constantly have a little air baby, including evidence-based quick fixes to help you in the moment of being bloated, as well as long-term fixes addressing the root causes. If you're new here, hello, I'm Hannah. I'm also a health coach and a certified nutritionist. And on this channel, I share realistic, science-backed tips to help you feel strong, healthy, and confident without the overwhelm. Let's get into it. Okay, first let's talk about why bloating even happens. So bloating basically comes from two possible main reasons. Either it's a medical condition or it's just air or gas. And air or gas either comes into your gut, into your stomach because you swallow air, which we all do to some extent while we eat, for example, or when food is moving too slowly through your system, or when bacteria in your gut are fermenting certain carbs, which is not necessarily a bad thing. So is all bloating bad? No. Some bloating is absolutely normal. First, often your stomach is not necessarily bloated, but just looks bloated because you've just eaten and there's just volume of the food that you just ate in your stomach. This especially applies if you eat a low-calorie, high-volume food like salad, for example. Because if you think of it, if you have that huge bowl of salad in front of you and you eat that, of course your stomach is not going to look as flat as before you ate. Similarly, if you eat certain types of foods, like for example beans, you've probably noticed in the past that you tend to bloat more easily. And that is because your gut bacteria are fermenting the carbs from those legumes, and that is causing bloating. But that bloating is not a bad sign because those foods are actually very healthy. As long as that bloating, even from those healthy foods, is not too much or too persistent. So some bloating can be absolute abnormal part of digestion. But if it's uncomfortable, if it's persistent, if it's there even though you didn't even eat within the last 1 or 2 hours, then that is a sign that maybe something's off. So now let's talk about possible causes of bloating that are not just the normal part of digestion. One of the most common causes of bloating is food sensitivities or intolerances, which is basically when your digestive system is lacking certain enzymes that would be necessary to properly break down the food that you're eating. A very well-known example is lactose intolerance. There, your body is lacking the enzyme lactase. And lactose intolerance is so incredibly common and I think still very underestimated, because nowadays, especially with all the protein craze going around, so many people are having a yogurt bowl for breakfast, which is incredibly healthy. Plain natural Greek yogurt is a little superfood if you want to call it that. But also at the same time, approximately 65% of the world's population has some degree of difficulty with absorbing lactose. On the other hand, something that has been a bit overrated, I feel like, or overestimated, is the sensitivity to gluten, because so many people go gluten-free, possibly out of other reasons than the fear of getting bloated from it, but tolerance towards gluten is pretty rare. Depending on the exact definition, it's about 6%, and I'm not even talking about celiac disease where you can actually not handle any gluten. That's much lower than 6%. But also that means that there is a possibility that also you have a difficulty with digesting gluten. Another very common intolerance that so many people aren't even aware of existing, even though it affects about 30 to 40% of the world's population, is fructose intolerance, which can make super healthy foods like apples, for example, really unhealthy for you. And then there is so-called FODMAPs, which is pretty complex, but so relevant if you struggle with bloating. So I will talk about FODMAPs later in this video because it deserves a whole section. So if you have an intolerance towards certain types of food, but you keep eating that food, not only can you get direct digestive issues like bloating, but also it might likely hurt your gut microbiome, possibly causing a gut bacteria disbalance, also known as dysbiosis. So in our gut, we have good bacteria and bad bacteria. The good bacteria are good. We need them to have a healthy gut. And a healthy gut is important for so many things, including for not being bloated. But if we have too much of the bad bacteria, that can lead to increased gas production and inflammation. And these bad bacteria are also fed, especially fed by processed foods and sugar. So you should try to feed the good bacteria and not to feed the bad bacteria to make sure that you have a good, healthy gut microbiome. Another very common reason for bloating is eating too fast. If you've been watching my content, you know that I'm a big advocate of eating slowly and chewing your food thoroughly. And I'm not just saying that because I want to annoy you. Science shows that it is so important for so many things, including having a healthy digestion. Because first, chewing is the first part of digestion, but also if you eat fast, it's very likely that you're swallowing a lot of air. And when you swallow a lot of air, that air gets into your stomach where it's not supposed to be. But also, if you don't chew enough, the food particles that go into your gut are much bigger than if you would have chewed more thoroughly, and that's gonna make them harder to digest, which again might lead to fermentation and gas production in your gut, aka bloating. Another very common reason for bloating is hormonal changes throughout our menstrual cycle for us women. Progesterone, the hormone that is higher during our luteal phase, so the phase between ovulation and our period, slows digestive motility, aka the movement of the food in your gut, basically. Estrogen fluctuations, on the other hand, affect water retention and gut sensitivity. And that's why so many of us experience more bloating around our period. Speaking of hormones, there's another hormone that can really increase bloating, which is cortisol. Cortisol is our body's stress hormone. And if we're stressed out too much, and with that have too much cortisol in our system, that can also cause gut motility, aka the speed of which the food goes through our digestive system. And again, if food stays too long in our gut, that can lead to fermentation and again, gas production. And stress can also significantly affect our gut microbiome. So as always, a little bit of stress might be good, but too much is not good. I know that's easier said than done sometimes, but I have a whole video about that here. However, while you can address most of these causes by yourself, if you're unsure or if your bloating is too severe, if it hurts, if other parts of your digestion also seem really off, or if you're just, in doubt and want to be safe, don't hesitate to go to your doctor and get checked out, just to be sure. But if you want to help yourself, here are some quick fixes how you can help your belly to debloat when it's already bloated. So there are certain foods that can help you to debloat, including papaya and kiwi, because they contain certain enzymes that help with digestion, especially with digesting protein, which often can be an enhancer of being bloated. And also one of nature's best remedies ever, ginger. Because ginger contains certain compounds that can stimulate digestive enzymes. So digestion is just going to be a lot easier. And also ginger is very anti-inflammatory, and with that helps to reduce inflammation in your gut. And you can either just drink ginger tea or add ginger to your food, or if you're really hardcore, just, eat the ginger. I couldn't do that, but just make sure that it's natural. If you decide to supplement ginger, make sure that it's a clean supplement without any additives. Another tea that helps a lot with bloating is peppermint tea. And peppermint tea first releases gas, but also helps with cramping because it relaxes digestive muscles. And experts suggest that it's best to drink peppermint tea between the meals to get the best results. And as always make sure to drink enough water to stay hydrated, because that's important for everything, including for not being bloated. Something else you can do that is not eating is to massage yourself. Probably you've had that intuition before that when you're bloated that you want to massage your belly a little bit, and that actually can help relieve the gas and also the cramps that come with bloating. Similarly, stretching can help a lot with both cramping and the gas, whether that's spinal twist where you twist your spine a little bit slowly, not too quickly, or laying down in child's pose a little bit, or in general just pulling your knees to your abdomen can be really comfortable. And also the pressure that it builds up in the stomach area helps to get rid of the gas. And something that helps with almost everything is walking, particularly after a meal, but in general just when you feel like it, especially when you're being bloated. However, intense exercise can worsen intense bloating when it's actually happening right now. Exercise usually is very healing for so many things, but while you're bloated, try to avoid too heavy exercise and rather rely on things like walking. Okay, so these are things that you can do when you're already bloated. But in order to be bloated less overall, let's talk about what you can do to address possible root causes. First and foremost, the probably easiest thing that you can do, and something that you most likely need, according to statistics, is to try to eat slower. Try to chew your food around 30 times at least, depending on what kind of food it is. If it's a banana, obviously you don't have to chew it 30 times, but the more hard it is, the more dense it feels, the more it probably needs to be chewed. Next to chewing a lot, something that also helps with eating more slowly is to put your fork down between bites. And yes, that can be really annoying, especially if you're just hungry and want to eat, but you'll get used to it. Trust me, you just have to keep doing it for a while. And that not only helps with actually digesting the food better and with swallowing less air, but also it helps with not overeating because it gives your brain time to receive your fullness signals, which just take about 20 to 30 minutes to arrive. So depending on how big your meal is, try to give yourself at least 20 to 30 minutes to eat, if not more. And I know this is not always doable, but do whatever you can. This is really so helpful for so many things. So the next thing is a bit more complicated, but again, one of the main causes for bloating, and that is FODMAPs. So what are FODMAPs even? What kind of word is that? So FODMAP stands for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. Still can't remember it, and you don't need to remember either. The only thing that you should remember is that FODMAPs are certain fermentable carbs that some people have troubles digesting. And these FODMAPs include some vegetables, some fruits, some dairy products and other protein sources, some grains and some sweeteners. Not all of those, but some of those. That's why I said it's a bit more complex. And the carbs from these certain foods, these FODMAPs, they ferment in the gut and produce gas. There are so many foods that fall under this FODMAP category, and I'll link you a cheat sheet down below where you can look it up. Some common high FODMAPs, so foods that contain a lot of these type of carbs, are, for example, apples, watermelon, onion, asparagus, wheat, rye, honey, or agave. So foods of which you would usually think are healthy, and they are, but some people still have problems digesting it. So first, what can you do to find out if you have that sensitivity? And second, what can you do if you find out that you do? So the best thing you can do, which is also what most doctors will tell you, because there's no test you can do, is to do an elimination diet. And that sucks because you have to leave out so many foods from your diet, all the FODMAPs, to really find out which are the triggering ones, because you might be able to eat some of the FODMAPs but not others. So the plan would be to leave out all the FODMAPs for 2 to 6 weeks and then systematically reintroduce each FODMAP one by one back into your diet and see if you have any symptoms. Now, this elimination diet thing is probably going to be very annoying because there's so many foods you won't be able to eat for a couple of weeks. So if you first want to try something else, something I would suggest is to keep a little food journal where you don't track anything, just write down what you ate and how you felt after. Right after eating, during eating, right after eating, and during the day. And then to maybe figure out after 1 week or so if you can see any patterns. I'll link you a template for keeping that food journal down below. And with that food journal, not only can you find out if you're sensitive to certain FODMAPs, but also if you have certain symptoms after eating certain other kinds of foods, for example, gluten-containing foods. Next to not liking certain kinds of food, there's something that no gut likes for sure, and that is too much stress, because chronic stress directly impacts gut function, gut bacteria, your overall gut health. And I know it can be hard to reduce stress. I'm speaking from experience, but this is so important. I have a whole video about how I balance out my cortisol levels, but for now, breathwork is so powerful, whether it's whole meditations or just taking 3 deep breaths 3 times a day, especially before eating, for example. Sleeping enough, exercising, even just things like walking or stretching, whatever feels good for you. And this does not have to be a lot. It can be just 5 or 10 minutes a day, and that can be so beneficial for your cortisol levels and your stress levels, and with that, your gut health. Eating smaller portions also might help with bloating, because sometimes you're just eating too much and you're putting too much work on your gut at once. But this is not necessary for everything. Just try out if that makes a difference for you or not, which is also why volume eating is not always the best idea. Even though, yes, vegetables are healthy and important, eating too much of the high voluminous healthy foods like vegetables and salads can be a lot of work for your gut. So just try to find your sweet spot. And one of the most powerful things you can do to reduce bloating, improve your overall digestion, improve your overall health, both the mental and the physical health, is to improve your gut health. I will soon make a whole video about gut health. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell if you don't want to miss that. But in short, there are some things that everyone can do to improve your gut health. First, eat more fermented foods. Fermented foods are incredibly powerful. What are those? Yogurt, if you're not lactose intolerant. If you are, lactose-free yogurt, same thing, or vegan yogurt. Just make sure it's clean without any sweeteners. Sauerkraut, kimchi, miso, just make sure there's active live bacteria in the foods, because sauerkraut and kimchi, for example, often are not cooled in the cooling area, but in glasses, and that's still tasty and stuff, but the bacteria is dead, so it's not going to do much for your gut. So make sure it says live bacteria, or that it does not say pasteurized, because pasteurized means basically that the bacteria is dead. And if you're only just starting with fermented foods, maybe start slowly by incorporating a little bit every day and then slowly increasing it. Give your gut a bit of time to adjust. Next, eat the rainbow / eat at least 30 different plants every week, because the higher the variety of foods that you put into your gut, the happier your gut bacteria is going to be. And this 30 plants a week rule, by the way, also includes things like herbs and spices, nuts, seeds, grains, every plant that you can think of. And when you then not only eat the 30 different versions, but also try to get different colors of fruits and vegetables, you also make sure that your body gets all the different micronutrients that are in the different kinds of plants, because those colors are often an indicator for what kind of micronutrients are in those plants. And one of the, I think, easiest yet most effective things you can do is to reduce artificial sweeteners and sugars from your diet, in your diet. And even if you think that you need sugar, you do not. You will get used to it. Our taste buds are so flexible, especially when it comes to sugar. It will suck in the beginning, but you will get used to it, and then you won't even need that much sugar anymore. Believe me. Our bodies, our taste buds can get used to almost anything, especially to less sugar. And sweeteners maybe are, although this is very controversial still, not so harmful for your gut. Although this is very controversial depending on the kind of sweetener. Artificial sweeteners are always bad for your gut health, but even the healthy sweeteners have a lot of sugar in them. So make sure to not overdo the sweetening, not only, but also because the less sweet you eat, even if it's from healthy sugar, like fruits or honey, the less sweet taste you will want, and that helps with everything, because then it just comes natural. But even more important than trying to get your taste buds used to eating less sweet stuff is to avoid artificial sweeteners at all costs. And yes, there is some controversy whether real sugar is worse or artificial sweeteners is worse, because yes, sugar is really bad, we know that, but artificial sweeteners have been shown in research to be really detrimental to your gut health, especially aspartame, sucralose are two of the examples that are in so many foods which say 0 sugar. So you think, that must be healthy, but no, this might actually be a lot worse for your gut health, and with that, your overall health, and also, by the way, your weight. Although the research on this is still very, very controversial, but that is my opinion, my humble opinion. If you found this video helpful, I'm very sure you will like this one here as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next one. Take care.